Oh, you're here. What's going on? My name's Josiah, otherwise known as the Canadian Degenerate, and welcome to Under the Spotlight. There's no denying we live in an incredible age of gaming. With every new release, developers push the limits of what was once thought impossible, delivering some of the greatest gaming experiences of all time. But in the midst of all the noise, spectacle, and anticipation for the next big thing, we often forget the experiences that brought us here. Through this series, we revisit games of the past in search of hidden gems, games that still deserve a place on our shelves and a chance to step back into the spotlight, only if they're worth the time and the money. Today's game is Onimusha Warlords for the PlayStation 2, as well as Genma Onimusha for the Xbox. Is it worth your time playing, and should you bother physically owning it? Let's go find out, shall we?
Is he coming back?
Onimusha Warlords, known simply as Onimusha in Japan, is an action-adventure game that was released in 2001 exclusively for the PlayStation 2, though its roots as a concept can be traced back to 1997 when producer Yoshiki Okamoto told a journalist from Nintendo64.com, "I am very interested in Nintendo 64. I have an idea for a ninja version of Resident Evil. The location is a ninja house, which is full of booby traps and gimmicks." The initial plan was to make a Resident Evil game set during Japan's Edo period, a time marked by political peace and economic growth under the Tokugawa shogunate, which was established by Tokugawa Ieyasu after his victory at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. However, this setting posed a problem. It clashed with the darker, grittier tone expected from the Resident Evil franchise, and as producer Keiji Inafune would later put it, the Edo period was a hard time to make into a flashy story. Inafune felt it would be easier to craft a compelling narrative during a time of conflict, so the game's setting was quickly shifted to the Sengoku period, a chaotic era defined by constant civil war that lasted for nearly 200 years. With that change, development on Sengoku Resident Evil was officially underway, but it wouldn't last long. The 64DD, the platform it was being developed for exclusively, was discontinued just 2 years into its lifespan. Sengoku RE was officially dead in the water, and what would have been the first Resident Evil game set in Japan was instead shelved, its potential forever lost to time. For reasons never made public, interest in a samurai-themed Resident Evil was rapidly fading among Capcom's senior executives, perhaps due to the already extensive lineup of franchise titles in the pipeline. Resident Evil's popularity was growing rapidly across the globe, and executives likely believed it wiser to invest resources in projects with a guaranteed return rather than revive one producer's fever dream of a new direction for the franchise. But Keiji Inafune wasn't about to let such a promising concept to be shelved so easily. Knowing the original idea would likely never get greenlit again, Inafune quickly approached the executives with a new pitch. This time shifting focus away from horror and survival mechanics commonly associated with Resident Evil and toward fast-paced action and swordplay, therefore setting it apart from the mainline franchise. Whether it was the new direction or Inafune's passion that won them over remains unclear, but the proposal was greenlit and the newly titled Sengoku Biohazard officially entered development as a PlayStation exclusive. The majority of the planning phase was already complete and the setting had been established, so little work was needed to revive development on the project, as the writing team chose to focus on real-world Japan so they could draw from historical events and figures to shape Sengoku Biohazard's narrative. However, despite internal support to the contrary, Inafune chose against using real-life samurai Akechi Mitsuhude as the protagonist, believing players might already hold strong opinions about the historical figure that could interfere with the experience. Though still debated by historians, Mitsuhude is commonly remembered as ruthless and a traitor, traits not typically associated with the hero of a story. Instead, Inafune felt it better to center the narrative on a completely fictional samurai while still nodding to the infamous general through the protagonist's name. Development on the project had reached roughly 50% completion when the decision was made to port the entire game to Sony's new console, the PlayStation 2. The leap in hardware capabilities from the first PlayStation was too significant to ignore, and Capcom didn't want to miss the opportunity to showcase the game on cutting-edge technology. Despite the project being so far along, the PlayStation 1 version was scrapped entirely, allowing the team to focus exclusively on optimizing it for the PS2. Today, little more than leaked clips and concept screenshots remain of the original build, but based on what has surfaced, some fans believe it may have been closer to release than Capcom originally let on. Nonetheless, no official build of this version was ever released, nor was it ever publicly shown in any capacity. The game remained in development until its eventual release on January 25th, 2001 as Onimusha Warlords. While the final product may have differed significantly from what Okamoto originally envisioned, it was his initial concept that kickstarted development and Inafune's determination to keep a project alive that would go on to become one of the most influential PlayStation 2 titles of all time. And it's very easy to see why. While slightly visually dated, the game opens with a captivating cinematic depicting the historic Battle of Okehazama, where the heavily outnumbered Oda clan, led by Oda Nobunaga, defeated Imagawa Yoshimoto and his army, establishing Nobunaga as one of the most respected warlords of the Sengoku period. Much like in reality, where Nobunaga is victorious and begins the process of Japan's unification, it would be all smiles and handshakes for Nobunaga, if only this weren't a video game. Because in this story, this wouldn't last long, because as I said before, this is a video game, and we need to further the plot. So...
He's not dead? Whoa, now this is a story!
This is where we're introduced to our main character, Semenosuke Akechi. He's been summoned by Princess Yuki, who suspects there's something far more disturbing than political unrest unfolding. She believes monsters are behind the chaos spreading throughout the kingdom. From here, a sinister plot begins to unravel, riddled with betrayal, cursed bloodlines, and an evil that blurs the line between man and monster. As a heads up, I won't be diving too deep into the story, as it's something I believe is worth experiencing firsthand. Spoiling key moments just for a few extra minutes of runtime really wouldn't do it justice, and even if the gameplay doesn't fully grab you, the story alone makes Onimusha worth playing through at least once. If you're a fan of the original Resident Evil games, the ones with fixed camera angles and tank controls, you'll feel right at home with Onimusha Warlords. The game sticks closely to this formula, and while it may feel dated by today's standards, it delivers a unique and surprisingly enjoyable experience. The biggest hurdle for newcomers is adjusting to the tank style controls. While largely obsolete today, tank controls were a staple of 90s and early 2000s gaming. Simply put, regardless of the camera's angle, pressing up always moves your character forward, left turns them left, and so on. The challenge with learning this control scheme mostly stems from the fixed camera angles, which can disorient players at first. But with a bit of patience and some time spent navigating the environment, controlling Semenosuke becomes second nature. Combat takes place in real time and focuses heavily on swordplay. While it can occasionally veer into button mashing territory, the game's steadily scaling difficulty keeps things engaging and pleasantly challenging, forcing the player to adopt a more strategic approach to combat when all else fails. Semenosuke is afforded two methods of attack, a basic attack combo and a special that consumes mana with each use. His special attack will vary based on the sword that is equipped. The blue sword smites enemies after 3 hits, the red sword ignites and knocks down foes, and the green sword creates a violent whirlwind surrounding Semenosuke, damaging all enemies inside. Enemy variety, while not expansive by modern standards, strikes an ideal balance, providing just enough diversity to ensure each combat encounter feels distinct and engaging. From grotesque foot soldiers to monstrous demons, each foe is thoughtfully designed, bringing their own own rhythm and challenge to the battlefield. What the enemy roster lacks in numbers, it more than makes up for in creativity and presence, helping keep the gameplay consistently gripping without ever feeling repetitive. Much like its inspiration, Resident Evil, Onimusha's gameplay, when not focused on battling demonic enemies, revolves around navigating the kingdom's intricate, cleverly designed maze-like pathways, each containing secret passages that create shortcuts and evolve the map as you play. Additionally, you'll solve puzzles along the way that unlock equipable gear, useful items, stat or weapon upgrades, and most importantly, open doors that further your progress. Upgrading Samanosuke's stats and weapons is where Onimusha really shines. Soon after he arrives at the castle, Samanosuke is smacked so hard that he's sent deeper into the abyss than Charlie is tall. Content with the reality of his death, Samanosuke is abruptly pulled from his eternal dirt nap and given a mission by the sacred Oni clan. Kill all demons. To do so, he is bestowed the Oni Gauntlet, a special piece of armor that grants him the power to mortally wound demons, absorb their souls, and use them to upgrade various abilities, most notably his weapons and in the remaster, their accompanying sacred seals, which are also key to unlocking specific doorways throughout the game. This mechanic incentivizes you to take frequent puzzle breaks in favor of the more reasonable and rational approach, kill everything in sight. Everything you do in this game offers some sort of value in improving your experience, whether you're actively progressing the story or not. And much like how the map evolves as you unlock secret pathways, the enemies you face from room to room evolve and adapt with your progression, further enhancing the overwhelming feeling of a kingdom completely overrun and keeping you on your toes no matter how convinced you are that the room is safe. With the occasional 1v1 boss battle to break up the routine multi-demon slaughter, Onimusha's general gameplay loop is incredibly fun and seldomly, if ever, crosses the line of repetitive, redundant, or boring. I had an incredibly fun time playing this game. I primarily played the remastered version on the Nintendo Switch, occasionally returning to the original on the PlayStation 2, and probably logged a combined playtime of 15 to 20 hours. While the PS2 version is still a great experience, I found that the revised controls and HD textures of the Remastered Edition made the game far more approachable from a general gameplay standpoint. Also dramatically improved the gritty yet pre-rendered backdrops and overall graphical fidelity, furthering its approachability. Now, I'm usually not the person who thinks good graphics equal good game, but unless you have access to a decent quality CRT, the original version can look incredibly muddy in places on modern TVs. At times, it can be difficult, almost impossible to read or figure out what you're supposed to be looking at. If you do have access to a CRT and a PlayStation 2, I definitely recommend experiencing it the way it was originally intended. But if you don't have access to those things, or if you simply prefer a cleaner graphical and overall experience, the Remastered Edition is the version I'd recommend and is probably the version I would recommend overall. The Xbox version is kind of in a league on its own. Following the success of the PlayStation 2 release, the game was quickly ported to Xbox as Genma Onimusha. This version brought several graphical improvements and expanded the gameplay with more enemies, equipment, weapons, and areas to explore. The developers also increased the difficulty and introduced a unique Xbox-only mechanic, the Green Soul. As you fight demons, you'll encounter the usual soul drops. Blue souls restore mana, yellow souls restore health, and red souls serve as your upgrade currency. But in the Xbox version, enemies can also drop green souls. These are contested. Both you and the enemy can attempt to absorb them, and if you do so at the same time, you'll enter a brief tug-of-war, which you can mash the A button in order to gain possession of the soul. If Samanosuke collects 5 green souls, you can activate a short burst of invincibility using the Xbox controller's white button. However, if a demon gets to it first, they enter a berserk state, becoming much stronger and significantly more dangerous. This edition gives the combat a fresh twist with a heightened focus on challenge. While it is arguably a fairly good upgrade to the original version, I don't think it's a big enough improvement to recommend over the PS2 original or the remaster, at least not for first-time players. The increased difficulty is great if you're already familiar with the game and looking for more of a challenge. But for most, if not all players, the PS2 and Remastered Editions offer a far more balanced and accessible level of difficulty that better reflects the intended experience. There is an easy mode that is baked into the Xbox version, which triggers after a few successive player deaths, but the decision to lock it behind something that causes a miserable experience only for the devs to kick you when you're down is a choice. It's weird to me, because once you enable easy mode, the game actually becomes incredibly enjoyable. You still have to face the additional enemies, but they're not going to kick your teeth in with every swing. It would have benefited Genma far more if they chose to make easy mode the intended experience, with buffed enemies coming into play during an unlockable New Game Plus playthrough. Instead, they force you to suffer through 30 minutes of misery to unlock the ability to enjoy the game. If you're after a fresh take, a tougher challenge, or just prefer to bash your head against the wall to solve all your problems, Genma Onimusha is definitely worth checking out. They added a meaningful amount of content, and the green soul mechanic really is a fun twist to combat, especially with all the extra fighting you do throughout the game. But if you're approaching Onimusha Warlords for the very first time, I cannot recommend it because you seriously can't go wrong with either the PlayStation 2 version or the remaster. Just because a game is worth playing doesn't always mean it's worth collecting, or buying at all for that matter. But in the case of Onimusha Warlords, it absolutely is. Despite the recent release of the Onimusha Remaster and the upcoming remaster of Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny later this month, I believe the original PlayStation 2 and in some cases the Xbox version are still worth seeking out. While I do recommend playing the remaster for its improved visuals and accessibility, it comes at the cost of certain elements that have now been lost to time. One such change that stood out to me was the replacement of the on-screen death message. In the original version, dying would trigger the word "died" to appear. Blunt, somber, and oddly poetic. In the remaster, this was changed to "game over," likely due to the popularity of Dark Souls and its now iconic "you died" screen. While this may have been necessary for legal reasons, "died" always felt like a heavier, more final statement, one that gave every misstep and fatal blow a little more weight. It's a small change, sure, but sometimes it's those small touches that elevate the experience. The biggest and most noticeable change, however, is the removal of the original soundtrack. The decision to do so followed the public controversy surrounding Resident Evil and Onimusha composer Mamoru Samuragochi, who admitted that he hadn't composed the music himself. Instead, it was revealed that music teacher Takashi Nagaki had ghostwritten the compositions. According to Nagaki, Samuragochi also confessed that his long-claimed hearing disability, a trait that earned him the nickname the Japanese Beethoven, was fabricated. This scandal led to the complete removal of Samuragachi's music from the 2018 remaster and all subsequent re-releases. While the replacement soundtrack is serviceable, longtime fans will notice the absence of the original compositions that were recorded with a 200-piece orchestra, and that's a loss that can't easily be replaced. When all is said and done, at just $12 for Warlords and $15 for Genma, the chance to preserve and experience Onimusha in its original form is not only affordable, I believe it's essential. While it may not be the rarest game on the market or have aged as beautifully as Keanu Reeves, these games are worth collecting because they're a part of a legacy that deserves to be remembered the way it was first told. This has been Under the Spotlight, and for Onimusha Warlords, I say, don't let it slip into the shadows. If you've made it this far, I just wanted to say thanks, honestly. Even though it's a small achievement, like, I never thought I would get to 100 subs, and now I'm breaching almost 100 10, which is it's so fucking cool. I just if you've made it this far, I appreciate you for watching, and if you like the content, let me know down below. If you did make it this far at all, let me know, because it'd be cool to know if some of the people that have been here for a long time, that they're still here, because I remember back almost 5 years ago at like 30-40 subs when all I did were Pokemon card openings, and in that time 60, almost 70 more of you have joined along for the ride. I don't know, that's cool. I just wanted to say thanks. I don't really have anything special planned, so I'm sorry. I can get out of the way. You can look at my wall if you can't see it that well. I know it's dark in here, so I don't know. Is this helping? Yeah. Yeah, this helps.